The courtroom was silent in a way that felt almost unnatural. Every movement echoed softly against the polished wooden walls, and every breath seemed heavier than it should have been. At the witness table sat a small girl, barely tall enough for her feet to touch the floor. Her eyes were wide, serious, and far older than her years. Beside her, sitting perfectly still, was a large German shepherd whose calm presence seemed to steady the entire room. But what no one realized yet was that this dog wasn't just sitting quietly. He was listening, watching, and responding to something almost invisible. Before we continue this powerful story, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to the channel if you believe animals deserve second chances and that sometimes the quietest heroes are the ones with four legs. The girl had arrived at the courthouse that morning holding tightly onto the dog's thick fur. Her name was Lily, and she had barely spoken a word since the night that changed everything. Social workers, psychologists, and even family members had tried to help her speak, but the trauma had wrapped around her voice like chains. Words simply wouldn't come out. The only being she seemed to trust anymore was the German shepherd named Rex. Rex had once been a working canine, trained for search and rescue operations after natural disasters. For years, he had responded to subtle commands from his handler, tiny hand signals, slight changes in posture, even a shift in breathing. To most people, these signals were invisible. But to Rex, they were as clear as spoken language. When Lily first met Rex during a therapy session months earlier, something unusual happened. She didn't speak to him. She didn't give him commands. She simply sat beside him in silence. Yet somehow, Rex seemed to understand her. If her hands trembled, he leaned closer. If her breathing quickened, he placed his head gently on her lap. The therapists noticed that Rex responded not to words but to the smallest movements of her fingers, the direction of her gaze, and even the tension in her shoulders. They called it subtle command recognition, something only highly trained working dogs could truly master. But with Lily, it felt like something deeper, almost like empathy. That was why Rex was allowed inside the courtroom that day. The case itself was heavy and complicated. Lily had witnessed something terrible, something the court needed her testimony to confirm. Yet everyone feared the pressure might be too much. Children often froze in such environments, overwhelmed by the staring eyes and towering adults. As the judge prepared the room and the attorneys shuffled papers, Lily sat quietly at the table. Her small hands rested near Rex's collar, and her eyes never left the polished surface of the desk. From the outside, it looked like nothing was happening. But Rex knew better. The dog's ears twitched slightly as Lily's fingers moved just a fraction of an inch. Her breathing changed ever so slightly, her shoulders stiffening as one of the lawyers approached. To anyone else, it was invisible. To Rex, it was a clear signal. Without making a sound, he shifted closer to her chair and rested his head gently against her arm. The movement seemed to ground her. People in the courtroom exchanged curious glances, but no one interrupted. The judge had allowed Rex to remain only if he stayed calm and silent. And calm he was, like a quiet guardian who understood a language no one else could hear. Minutes passed, and the courtroom tension grew thicker. The prosecutor gently asked Lily a question, hoping for any response at all. For a moment, nothing happened. The silence stretched long enough that some believed the day would end. Without a single word from her. Then Lily's hand moved again. Just a small motion, her finger pointing toward Rex's ear. Rex immediately sat up straighter. It was the kind of subtle signal used by trained handlers, a gesture that normally meant attention and readiness. But Lily had never been taught canine commands. No one had trained her. Yet somehow, Rex understood. The dog's presence changed the energy around her. Lily's breathing slowed. Her shoulders relaxed. Slowly, almost painfully slowly, she lifted her eyes from the table. For the first time since entering the courtroom, she looked directly at the judge. The room held its breath. And then, in a voice so soft it barely rose above a whisper, Lily spoke. The words were fragile, but they were real. Each sentence came slowly, like stepping stones across a river she had been afraid to cross. Rex didn't move the entire time. He simply stayed beside her, responding to every tiny shift in her posture, leaning closer when her hands trembled, remaining still when she gathered strength. Experts later said that Rex had been responding to micro-signals, movements and emotional cues too subtle for humans to notice. It was the same skill that had once helped him locate survivors buried under rubble. But here, inside a quiet courtroom, those skills had helped rescue something just as precious, a child's voice. By the time Lily finished speaking, the courtroom was no longer silent because of tension. It was silent because people were overwhelmed. Some wiped away tears quietly. Others stared at the German Shepherd with a kind of respect they had never felt before. The case moved forward after that day. Justice began to take shape, slowly but surely. But for Lily, the biggest victory had already happened. She had spoken, and Rex had understood her long before anyone else did. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes animals can change lives, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the powerful bond between humans and dogs. And before the story ends, I have a small request for you. Comment the word loyalty below if you believe dogs truly understand our emotions better than we realize. Because sometimes, the strongest voices in the world aren't loud at all. Sometimes, they're heard through the quiet understanding of a dog who knows exactly when someone needs courage the most.